Welcome to Inspire Me with Jay, a podcast focusing on meditation, the near-death experience, and all things spiritual. Hello, this is Jay Spillers with Inspire Me with Jay. My special guest today is Cherie Teer. How are you?
I'm fabulous. Thank you for having me.
So you had like a near-death experience and out-of-body experiences. Why don't you just start by telling us about your near-death experience that you had?
I had many experiences. I grew up in a very abusive home, and my father almost killed me the first time when I was 6 months old, and again when I was 9. And through my years of trying to heal and studying many different modalities, it became very clear to me that dissociation is also an out-of-body experience. And all of them are just different depths of the fragmentation. Like to astral travel, quantum jump, anything cool, we have to leave our body. We're in control of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I guess the first near-death experience really opened me up to see life very differently. And as those actions occurred throughout life, yeah, it opened the door to understanding that there's a lot more going on than science sees. And there's a lot more going on with a person who has, especially these very early experiences that is counter to being ill, right? It's just they don't fit their circumstance.
Mm-hmm. What did you see during your experience? Did you see any lights or any particular things?
Oh my goodness, I went to many different worlds, right? I mean, I have a book that's going to become a movie right now, right? So yeah, like I had friends on different planes of existence. I mean, but it became something I did very often is what I'm trying to say to you. So like it became the levels of existence, right, were very fluid for me. Because at 6 months old, like I didn't have the framework of thought that you have. Yeah. And we have to realize that so many young children that the world is calling sick are really open to the greatness and the depth of what's out there, right? And their environment isn't supporting that. Yeah. Right.
So what kind of world did you see?
Well, my book, Chronicles of Tigwa, is my experience through all the depths of my existence. That means like when I would need to fight, the panther would show up and shift in, and I would be able to access that power because my natural instinct is to run, but sometimes you need to fight. I would go to different planes. There was a tribe of Native Americans. Well, that's how I saw them. That taught me a lot of things and maneuver and open up to the depths of what was happening here, being in such contrast to what I knew was possible. Right? That's a huge, complex contrast for a child. Right? I would meet with Jesus all the time.
So you've had experiences starting since you were 6 months old, and it's just been continuous throughout?
Yeah, because it became a journey of understanding how to take that action out of reaction. Because when a person is struggling in those complex situations, yeah, dissociating from their body is a separation of their astral body from their physical body. That's what leaves when you die. It's just the depths of how much you leave.
I spent several years of my life stressed, anxious, and depressed. I needed to find something that would make my life work. For me, that was meditation. With meditation, I found the peace of mind that I was looking for. I found the happiness, and I found a way to improve every area of my life, my emotional life, my spiritual life, my relationships. I was able to discover things about myself. I can give you the tools to meditate. I will walk you through the process and hold your hand. Whether you're a beginner to meditation who's never meditated, or whether you're someone who's tried meditation and it just never seemed to work, we can make it work. Meditation is something that everyone can do, and I can show you how. Check out my course on meditation. I was just going to ask you, did Jesus tell you anything when you would meet with him?
Oh, a lot of things. He taught me a lot of things. He taught me how to view a lot of things. When people that say they love you are trying to murder you, that's a pretty big conflict of thought to try to maneuver from the get-go, right? And you're trying to live in that house, right? So I guess, right, that when a person is having a near-death experience, right, what they're leaving is just as important as where they're going. What's happening to them is even more important because they chose to come back. Right? And choosing to come back, we can start taking ownership of that action, which gives us the possibility of doing a lot of cool things like astral travel, quantum jumping. Those are all things that you have to have an out-of-body experience to do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which is cool.
When you said you went to other worlds, did you see like other planets?
No, I went to other planes of existence. So there are different planes of existence, and there are guides. Do you believe there are guides? Do you believe in guides? Yeah. So my guides would take me and teach me. As I said, there was a place I would go that, right, and I was a child, so it was pretty cool. But anyway, these planes of existence that I could go and be safe. And in that space, they would teach me because they knew I was very psychic. And I was, had a highly sensitive, right, empath. And, being able to maneuver an extremely violent environment, being an empath and being highly sensitive and being a child is a lot. And I think that having access to those abilities keeps kids alive, and that makes them brilliant and not ill. I know that in the esoteric world, the focus is on the experience, right? But they're coming back. So they're coming back with the power and information, right, from that. And we are given that information to create change here rather than focus on there. I guess that through all the years of doing it, that's, I've died numerous times. And out of all of the years, that's what I came back with, is like, you keep trying to get out, you keep coming back. And maybe it's about bringing all that power and knowledge and wisdom here and doing something different.
Well,
doing something create some big change. Yeah.
Well, I know like someone that that I talked to that had experienced sexual assault said that she'd be taken to a beautiful garden and could see vivid colors and flowers and things like that. Did you have experiences like that?
Yes, many. That's what I'm saying. I would be taken to a place where there was a tribe of Native Americans, right? I would be taken to a tree and a stone where I would meet Jesus. And I was always met by a panther, always, a black panther. And he would guide me here and there. And they would come here too. Right? They would come here to help me too. Yeah. So I think that, yeah, that's what my whole book is about. Saying, hey, we have access to many planes of existence that change our lives, and not only adults have, right? And we often focus all the research on grown-ups, and we make kids ill, right? And yeah, like I could stare at anything and boom, just be gone. And I got to where I had developed where I could walk around and leave, right? And I could go anywhere. Now, it's not safe, right? But I got to where I didn't have to be dead to go there. Does that make sense? I guess that is my message to the world.
Yeah,
right?
and I knew of, oh, go ahead. I
No,
knew
go
of,
ahead. Yeah.
yeah, I knew of one near-death experiencer who said that when they came back, they could instantly go into the light anytime they wanted, and they could download new information because he kind of would do inventions and things like that with information he would gain from the light.
Well, my mission on the planet has been to save children and to create some understanding around the complexity and the experiences they're having. And all of the experiences that the adults are talking about, children are having at 2 and 3 and 6 months old and 5. So the amount of complexity that a person has when they come back from a near-death experience, trying to create understanding around that, children go through that all the time. And that's became my mission, right? Because most of the people bound up in CPTSD and PTSD are people that have had those experiences.
Is it kind of like you would go up there and Jesus would give you a lesson on maybe the oneness of everything or on love or how to have peace? Was he just kind of giving
Yeah,
you?
I guess like where I'm probably not your, I guess, my mission on the planet is I had all those experiences and I'm bringing that back to the world to create change here. And Jesus was very instrumental in that. And I have a business and he helped me develop, all of my guides helped me develop a method to liberate these children from the quantum entanglement caused by these out-of-body experiences. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here to talk to you, because I think that there's a depth of understanding that is lost when it comes to a 6 months old or a 5 month old or a 5-year-old having a near-death experience, right? Because it's way more to them than Jesus giving a lesson on oneness, right? Because for a child that is 5 years old, they come into the world, they're in oneness. It's grown-ups that knock them out of oneness, right? So when they go up and access that information and they come down, and the complete contrast between that euphoria and those abilities and their environment is very detrimental. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So what is your method to help children heal and to
Well, we've actually, well, I work a lot with adults because I'm really passionate about, you know, people who are having children now, right? And, you know, in being able to go through and untangle that quantum entanglement, we actually use those actions where we're utilizing the ability, right, to have an out-of-body experience and travel, right? Because they time travel all the time, right? They're hopping through time all the time, right? So to be able to harness that and that become a superpower, right? Mm-hmm. They have the ability to untangle that and actually be amazingly gifted people on this planet, right? Because they're creative thinkers. All the downloads that you're talking about, yeah, they get them. I got downloads all the time. I could talk to the trees, I could talk to the animals, right? I could talk to the birds, I could talk to the water. Mm-hmm. Right? I could talk to Jesus, I could talk to my panther, right? What good did it do me at the time, right? So when we can help people understand and create unity between all these experiences, right, with life, they become really amazing change makers. So yeah, we've developed a system. I've developed a system called Quantum Therapeutix, and we're going to have a movie. Quantum Therapeutix, on one level, you know, at the end of it, people feel like they've been through magic school, because the amount of gifts and downloads these people have gotten through their lifetimes without any ability to express it or share it or even file it away. Most often, you know, through the years, you tend to like, yeah, I was just in psychosis, or I was in this, or I was in that, you know. And I think to be able to bring them through to a point where they are manifestors and creators, and I'm talking people going from homeless to, right, the business owners in a year, right? Mm-hmm. That's an activation, because those experiences then are creating change for everyone around you, right? Mm-hmm. They're amazing beings. Right? Amazing beings. So I'm super excited, right, to see the experiences move from idea to action. Mm-hmm. Right? I've got clients that say, I have angels with me, right? Yeah, she had some experiences as a child, right? And she's like, I have angels with me. I feel them. They're with me all the time. And I'm like, why are you suffering? Mm-hmm. Right? We have to get untangled to be able to receive the downloads. Right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. As part of this untangling, do you use like meditation or hypnotherapy or something to sort of get to that?
We actually use quantum jumping. Mm. And they do it themselves, right? Because these quantum actions are really brilliant, right? They're really brilliant. And, you know, there's skills, obviously, that have been honed through many lifetimes to be able to astral travel, you know, because think about this, right? What is an out-of-body experience, right? What is leaving your body?
When your spirit leaves your body and you're outside your physical body,
What is your spirit? What is your spirit?
it's sometimes might be called your astral body.
Exactly. Right? So dissociation is the separation of one thing from another. What is separation? What is separated? The astral body from the physical body in both instances.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Both instances, the astral body is leaving the physical body. And the astral body has weight, right? It is real. I mean, even air has molecules. So to think our astral body has no atomical structure doesn't even make sense. Right?
I was going to say, does the appearance of the astral body mimic the physical body? So, you know, kind of like when you see the ghosts come
it
out,
does.
it looks like, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. That's what we're seeing is their astral body, right? That's what survives,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So when we separate like that, have the ability to move around, just like a person who's having an out-of-body experience.
Mm-hmm.
Not every person has the same experience.
How do you do this?
Not everybody goes to that person's field of flowers.
Mm-hmm.
It's much easier to move through time where you've already been than it is to go to another plane of existence. Much easier. That's what a flashback is. An unconscious quantum jump. So when we understand that we're doing that anyway, and we can understand, because that's when it became clear to me, was when I was studying astral travel and quantum jumping. And I realized, well, I've been doing that all my life.
Well, because I kind of get that when I do meditation. Sometimes I'll just have like a quantum jump in the past, and it'll feel how I felt in that moment. Like you'll kind of feel like the air is there and everything is, you know, connected.
Exactly. That's it, honey. Right? That's it. Now, what we have to be careful of is when we go back in that moment, our astral body, the fragment that's trapped there and the part that's here, right, are like magnets. So in a flashback, we're getting sucked into the trauma of the child. And it's very gooey, it's very emotional. When we jump in, we're jumping in as an adult and pulling the child to the adult, which creates unity in the astral body, not unity in the fragment. So when we move through the vortex of time, we can actually create literal wholeness in our astral body. Very quickly, that's one of the first things people say to me. It's like, huh, I used to feel so empty. And now I feel, I feel full. I feel whole. I feel taller. I feel bigger. Right? Because we are. Right? We are.
When you go back to
you know, in that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, so when you go back to a flashpoint, like where you had a trauma, do you stay there for a moment and just like release healing or love or something positive to kind of heal that?
When we do it intentionally, when we do it intentionally, we go in, we create perspective for the fragment who's trapped there, because, you know, Einstein says that with a force strong enough, we can fold time in upon itself. That's karma. That's PTSD, both the same thing, right? That loop that keeps people pulled back, right? Now, in that loop is a fragment of our astral body, otherwise you'd be dead, right? That version that had that big event lived on, right? And that's the concept of amnesia, because it's pretty brilliant, really, when you think that child realized that I need to encapsulate that so that I can get up and have breakfast. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's brilliant. So when we go back into that loop, we go back as an adult, right? Keeping that separation. Most often the child is very frightened. They're very afraid. They feel very alone, and they feel that they are the only thing they have to depend on.
Mm-hmm.
So when we can go back and give them gratitude for surviving that and being that ingenious, right? And offer them a different perspective on the moment. So we're really doing with them what Jesus and my guides always did with me, is giving me a perspective that makes sense. Because the problem is that the adult has taken assumption and a lot of things and scotch taped it together, and it's not true most often, right? And when we get into those moments in time, right, both sides have ahas, right? And then, we can actually, the word integration is thrown around all over the place, and nobody can really say what they're integrating. I'm telling you, we're creating unity in the astral body. And in that, we're also shifting programming. We're releasing the glitch in the cycle, so cycles unfold, and pretty instantly, like NDR claims, that they could take one trauma and desensitize it in 3 to 12 sessions. And we can do that in an hour. Now, the thing is with complex PTSD is that, right, those moments happen often, right, over and over again. So, they're leaving their body at the slightest provocation, right, in time. And, so there's lots of low loops that we need to dismantle. But, life can be very different in a 90-day period, right? And then it's like learning.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because it's like there's all these different names and theories and ways people discuss it, but it's like the concept of going back to the point of trauma and time and kind of healing yourself in some different way. It seems like I've heard it expressed in many different ways, and I've kind of even done it in meditations before where you go back and do it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it never stuck, right? And that became a thing for me because I was studying with Deepak Chopra. I have been certified in so many bazillion things trying to understand, right, why I wasn't getting better, right? I was in therapy for 35 years and I was not getting better and no one knew why, right? And, it was actually Deepak Chopra, which, who instigated in me, or he saw that I could jump. He saw that. He saw that I could do that. And, right, but it was just all unconscious, which makes you feel like a crazy person, right? If you're having out-of-body experiences all the time, right, and you're seeing things from a different perspective all the time, how do you live here, right? So life was always a struggle, and I'd rather be there, right? He was very clear about that, but we can't change the world from up there, right? So, he called me to take authority of that action, and when I did it consciously the first time, once I realized, right, that that was conscious, right, that I could do that, then it took it out of the dysfunction column, right? Because my experiences were interpreted as psychosis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not as spiritual, cool out of body experiences. Shamans would see that. Healers would see that, but not the medical world. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So,
Yeah, because I thought
yeah.
I heard Tony Robbins was teaching about something like that, where he would take people back to certain events in their life and would try to heal from it and things like that, you know.
I know. And I've done a lot of that, right? I did
Mm-hmm.
all of Tony Robbins and, what I can say is it doesn't have to be that painful and it doesn't have to take that long and it doesn't have to be gooey, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can get in there and disconnect from it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've taken people who, right, woke up to the idea that their father molested them. And in like a few short months, the toxins were out of their body,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which means that you can actually forgive someone, not forgive what they're doing today. Forgiveness is about ourselves, right? It's detaching from that being our daily experience, right? And that can happen very quickly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Soul fragments, yeah, like we've known this, right? But I'll work with a lot of healers and they'll be like, I've already done this work. And, I have all of my fragments around me. And I'm like, but that's not the point. They are you. They're molecules, actual particles of you, right? So we have to understand, like, if we take a mirror and we drop it, every shard of that mirror can stand alone,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not intended to. And it might cut the crap out of it. Those fragments are afraid. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this unity vortex creates, like, it's like going into a blender.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And, it's an instant shift, and that those molecules are truly unified with the molecules of the astral body, because you only have so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you keep fragmenting, pretty soon you don't have enough astral body to operate your body from today, and people start shorting out. Like a lot of my clients come to me having seizures, right? Drop attacks, syncope. They can't feel their feet and legs. They can't feel their hands, right? It's literal.
It's sort of like healing the fragment and then bringing it back in to be whole.
I would say, I don't think it is literally reprogramming the fragment, giving them a different perspective, creating unity between thought, between the story of the adult and the child, and
Mm-hmm.
actually unifying the fragment back into the astral body of the physical body. That is the procedure in imaging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have heard of like near-death experiencers coming back and being physically or emotionally healed. Like I read of someone that had anorexia, and then when she came back, that issue was just gone. You know,
Yeah.
but and you may not when you're over there because it's unconscious or you're just healed, but you don't really know exactly consciously why, but you just know you're healed.
Well, she can eat,
Yeah.
right? Often when we're in opposition to our food like that, like we're in opposition to nurturing ourselves, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to create that shift,
Mm-hmm.
would remove the obstacle to the food. So that's beautiful. I love that.
So what does a healing session or a quantum therapeutic session look like when someone comes in? Do they come in for like an hour and you work with them?
We have a 90-day intensive because it doesn't happen overnight. And often when we get into that, right, then we're going to be triggering other things that are buried even deeper. So at the end of that 90 days, right, the landmines are gone, right? And we're moving into a state of authority of self by the end of that. And I'm the only one that does that. My practitioners, we have different levels of practitioners, and we really walk with you in partnership. I do that as well, but we walk in partnership with you for a 12-month period. That means we take you through that intensive, we get you uprighted, we get those loops cleared away, the fragments are unified, right? And you're completely in the present moment, right? Because you can't be in the present moment if you're constantly being catapulted backwards, yeah? And then at that point, we're really focusing in on shifting our behaviors, really honing in our words, really developing these skills, right? Honing in on why we're here. What's your purpose? Why did you choose to come back here? Right? What are you doing with that? And how can we help you get activated? It's a big activation. And at the end of that, people are on purpose. Right? And yeah, the 90-day, we meet twice a week. And right? And we really walk in partnership through that time, because we're also really explaining a lot of the spiritual gifts that they have, right? Because there's no guidebook, right? And people are talking about getting zings all the time and like all these things, and they have no understanding around what is happening or how to interpret what they're experiencing, right? So, you know, being able to take all those things out of the illness column and help them understand, which I'm grateful that the shamans around the world did for me, that those experiences are truly highly honed skills, right? Being able to see, being able to jump in, you know, spatially clairvoyant. You can't do that if you're not, if you're in your body, right? Being able to access that amount of information, it can be very useful.
So is it like, would you be guiding them through a session as they're doing this?
Oh, absolutely. We're there with them every step of the way, right? Because even in astral travel, they tell you to not do it by yourself because time is different. You forget to come back, you get caught in the goo. So no, it's very purposeful. That's what a session is. As I said, we're going to initiate and utilize the action of a flashback, right? We're going to hone in on a loop, which is like a frozen moment in time. And we're going to go into that moment like as an adult, feet on the ground, right? Being able to give that child what it needs to move on, right? And in that, we can dismantle the glitch in time so that time can move forward. And there's no magnetization to that. Right? The magnetization is the astral body trying to unify, right? But as long as we make it about ourselves, the child gets lost and again is not seen. So we are very intentional.
So when this is happening, do the people actually feel like they're out of their body?
Yeah.
Because it's like I've never. I think maybe one time I felt like I was out of my body during a different experience, but like when I meditate and I do these things where you go back, I've never really felt like I was out of my body exactly. Is there a specific way to get out of your body?
That's why we're doing this different, right? That's why it's different, because it's real. It's not just thinking about it, right? I could get out of my body and walk around the room, right? And be able to see my body sitting here, right? And, you know,
How does
that's
the average
legit.
person do that?
Well, I mean, it is a skill. It is a skill, right? And it's done very intentionally. And, you know, that's what I mean. When I, you know, took many classes studying, I realized that it was the same action, right? And it's all in the details. It's very much in the details, and it's not in the emotion. And it's very difficult to do on your own.
So once you're out of your body,
right?
once you're out of your body, you can go anywhere. You can go to essentially heavenly realms and wherever you want.
That's harder. You can, but that's harder. It's a lot easier to go where you've already been. And the loops have fragments of your astral body, which are like magnets. So normally, if we're going to do it unconsciously, we're going to be pulled to the magnets, right? Which is our biggest suffering, right? Our biggest traumas, right? Because we don't just fragment and create a time loop around Thanksgiving dinner that's fabulous, yeah, right? You know, that unconscious action is done for survival. And, you know, when you can take it out, I mean, look at Netflix superheroes, what those guys are, right? And they've all come from a space of trauma.
And
you know, they've all come from a space of trauma and are trying to understand how to stop being in reaction, right? An empath is the highest of all beings, right? They've honed it all, right? And most often, being able to willy-nilly go in and out, those are empaths. So those are really highly sensitive, highly evolved beings. You can learn to get out of your body in astral travel, right? To be able to actually create the same change in the loops. Even clients who have been in my bubble for a long time, right? You know, need a guide through those moments, right? Because they're hard, you know, and a different level of understanding of those moments are required, right? Because as this child is having these mystical experiences, no one's explaining it to them, right? We're also really trying to create a common vernacular around meaning, right? That actually has some tangibility, because like there's so much airy fairy words floating around that mean something different to every person, and often mean nothing to the person who's actually having the experience, right?
is there some people that aren't able to get out of their body? Have you ever experienced that?
No, people can learn it. I think people that have done it from survival, I don't have to teach them anything. They just to get out of the way and stop protesting, right? So, you know, just as this, the possibility, you know, the opening for possibility is there, right? You know, if a person can get out of their body, they can create change, right? There's been study on time for a long time. Einstein was studying it back a long time ago. The esoteric world knows you can astral travel through your own timeline very easily, right? You know it. You know the details of it. And to create a portal, it's about the details. So as we're bringing a person into the possibility of a jump, right? We get them talking about the details. Tell me what the front of that house looks like. Or, you know, first question, where do you see the child? I never say, where do you see you? Say, where do you see the child? And she's at home. How old is she? She's 5. What house did she live in? She was 5. Right? Blah, 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 blah. Can you describe the house to me from the front, as if you were standing on the sidewalk? Okay. What's it look like? What's the street look like? Can you put your feet on the grass in front of that house? Can you stomp your foot and feel the reverberation up your leg of your ground hitting the earth? Can you reach down and touch the grass and feel it on the palms of your hands? Is it prickly or is it soft? Look up at the sky. What time of day is it? Is it afternoon, morning, evening? What's the front door like? Right? Because in that space, there's also twofold. Almost everything we do within a jump is very direct and has a multi-layered effect, right? So as we're going through these details, there is also distraction from the emotion of the moment. Right? So we're able to hold that separation between the current astral body and the magnetization of the fragment. Right? So as we step into the door, you know, again, more detail, and as we step into the front door, who's in the house? Right? Where are they in the house? Can they see you? Can they see you? Right? And we have to recognize that we are inserted in time, so we're very careful around how we're interacting with anyone other than self, right? And getting to self, right? Our first action is recognition. Can she see you? Does she recognize who you are? Can you get her to leave the house with you? Right? And getting out of the traumatic environment is very important as far as changing perspective for both adult and child. And again, it's not only with that we're working with the child, we're also working with the adult. Because, you know, they want to be in a very self space about themselves. And, you know, we have to really be clear, this isn't about you right now. This child just went through the horror, right? If you were actually her mother, what would she need right now? What can you give her? What perspective can you give her? Right? Can you release her in her knowing that she did that? She survived that. And you're alive today because she did that. Right? Move out of this victim space and into some gratitude for the strength and amazing magical abilities of this child. Right? And when we can start creating that balance between the two stories, unification is possible, right? Because otherwise it's rejected. People told me they, did integrations with me over and over again. And I'm like, it's not changing, right? Those two stories have to be congruent. Otherwise, right, there's friction, right? There's friction. So in that space, right, we can only unify the fragment if they agree. And sometimes they don't like us. Sometimes they're not thrilled with what we've done with all of their ingenuity, right? And
Mm-hmm.
again, removing that friction to where trust can build, because that inner trust is what these amazing wizards are lacking, right? So if you can't trust yourself, probably not trustworthy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So in that space, right, we invite the child to come home with them and explain to them that they don't have to live there anymore. They don't have to be in Groundhog Day, right? They can come back and actually grow up and be a part of what is happening with you today and how bad you need them, right?
Is this?
And
Oh, go ahead.
sometimes the kid, because it's real time, and sometimes the kid's like, but wait, what about my brother? And we explain to them, right, that time is going to go on. They're not being extricated from their family life, but they don't have to live in Groundhog Day in that loop anymore. Time is going to absorb. And they understand. And once that understanding that they're not abandoning life, that they're actually rejoining life, there's excitement and joy around it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I can say is most often we're coming home with laughter, right? We're coming home with possibility. And the magnetization of those quote emotions are dispersed very quickly, right? With each jump, right? Because that friction is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Being misunderstood is the problem, right? It's the problem. And if you don't understand yourself, who can? Right? And, you know, most often we're maneuvering the world like Harry Potter when he was living in the closet, blowing stuff up around it, right? Because these gifts are amazing, right? Your whole show is about only one fragment of what I'm talking about, of being able to get out of your body, right? And they're doing so much. And it's going unnoticed, which I guess that's one of my missions.
Mm. So it's
So
sort of.
they're absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
No, go ahead.
So it's sort of like as you do the questions, you create such a vivid visualization that they can separate from their body, and then you go through the healing process once they're at that state. That's kind of what's going on.
Kind of.
Mm.
Kind of. What is really going on is that we're creating a vortex for them to jump through time, right? And the vortex is created in the details, right? If you study any sort of jumping or experiences like that, astral travel, it's all in the details, right? So the details actually create the vortex.
Mm.
And, you know, when that vortex shows up, we guide them through to the space. Part of the questions about what's the grass feel like, that's also like twofold, in that keeping them separated from the child's emotions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Did you create Quantum
Yeah,
Therapeutix, or did you learn it from someone
I
else?
did. I did.
Mhm.
Right. And it is a culmination of the bits and pieces of things that worked but didn't stick. Right. And concepts that intrigued me but had no action or tangibility with them, you know, because I had a psychiatrist, like, I was probably, gosh, 20 years ago. He kind of started the whole thing, right? He was like, Cherie, you know, because I'm very bright and I had studied a lot trying to figure out how to get whole or well or whatever the word is, right? And you know, he waved his arm at me and he says, I don't know what to say to you, but you're just not in there. And I was like, what does that mean? And he goes, I don't know. I was just called to say that to you. And I don't know how to help you any further. Right? You're just not in there. And I was like, well, if I'm not in here, where am I? And he said, honey, I just don't know. But he was right. And it was literal, right? Dissociation, they talk about people's experience about watching yourself live. If you're out of your body and over in the corner or above your house, you're watching yourself live, literally. So I guess my journey came, like I said, I studied with Deepak Chopra for 6 years. I'm certified twice as a medical intuitive, an emotional intuitive, like astral travel, quantum, all these things. And I'm like, you know, which with each thing came a pebble of truth that I'm like, okay, let's put, it's not going to heal me all by itself, but let's put it in this container. And when I was able to start really creating active change for myself, right? I was like, okay, let's see if it can be duplicated, right? Can we duplicate this, right? You talk about my guides brought in a lot of this information, right? Through my suffering, where I would throw a temper tantrum and I'd be like, what the heck, right? I can't live walking in one room with a bag of groceries and walking out with no groceries in my hands. Like, this is not cool with the experiences I'm having. You know what I mean? True. Yeah. And that's pretty much how I was living, and a lot of my clients as well. It's like, we don't have any way to define what's happening to us. And truly, they're highly activated, right? It's just they're being caught up in a framework where they're from a book and ideas trying to tell us what we're experiencing rather than hear it, right? I'm a seer. I can see through other people's eyes and see what they're seeing. And, you know, I've worked with schizophrenics. You know, that's fear. That's a level of fear. When I look through, I can see what he's seeing, but I can also see that an angel is a demon in the dark. If you're afraid, you're afraid, right? And a lot of people come to me with spiritual experiences scared to death, right? They're getting premonitions, scared to death. And I'm like, but wait. This is super cool. Look at the information you're getting. So that's the piece. In these out-of-body experiences, you were talking about these downloads. But if you're afraid, right, you don't know what to do with the information and you interpret it in a very old, fearful pattern and way. Where a lot of times the information that's coming in, right, I'm like, but wait. And we talk through it in a new and different way. And it's like, oh, yeah. Okay, that's a huge validation. Okay, you see where I'm going with that? Right? So yeah, these out-of-body experiences and these travels to different planes of existence and being able to talk to the trees and the animals, it's amazing. Right? If you can figure out how to integrate that into your daily existence, right? I just had a session recently with a guy who had an out-of-body experience, and he's been chasing that euphoria ever since and has never left his couch. That is a crime. That's a crime, right? That's like mental masturbation. What are you doing that for? If you're really having these experiences, there should be information coming through to create change. Yeah. Right? If angels, like I told my client today, if you know you have angels with you, then why is this happening? Right? Because thinking you have angels with you and you actually living like you have angels with you is a very different thing. Right?
So it's sort of like, I think probably a lot of people would be accessing this in dreams, but they have no way of understanding it or integrating it as they're dreaming about. Does dreams have a lot? Yeah.
Dreams are a quantum jump too, right? And oftentimes, right, those dreams and it's a way, you know, our conscious mind of limitation is turned off when we're sleeping. So like through those years that I was suffering, I got a lot of information while I was sleeping. Right? Now we have to also understand that the corpus callosum is the place that we're trying to access when we're meditating. That's the gap. When you get in your corpus callosum, science is claiming that that's the control room of everything that you are. Right? So that's a physical place that you can access and have instant access to that. Right? So another thing we're really teaching people is how to operate this system, how to understand these energetic systems, right? In a way that's tangible, because they are real and they're just as important, right? And mimic, like the chakra system mimics your spinal cord or your spinal column. The kundalini, like your spinal cord. Right? Your auric field is your buffer to be able to be, like Buddha says, in the eye of the hurricane. That's literal. And your auric field should be 6 feet big all the way around you. Right? So that you have space to act rather than react. Right? And a lot of us have our auric field pulled in really tight. Right? Especially after. Right? So as we're going through and they're, quote, getting healed or reassembled after all this fragmentation, they're also really learning how to navigate the world being a highly sensitive empath, right? And take ownership and that be a magical space that is useful to the world rather than a detriment.
So if people want to reach out to you, how can they do that?
Oh my gosh, please do. So many ways. QuantumTherapeutix.com with an X, right? Yeah, hop on there, right? You can book a freedom call and I'll have a face-to-face with you. And that's completely free just to, right, get your toes wet. We also, you know, you can join the app on our website. We have a podcast, 2 podcasts actually, Turn Illness into Brilliance and Today I Choose. And Today I Choose is really active. It's an experience. We're making music, we're dancing, we're teaching everyone how to take ownership of these actions in a fun way. Yeah, Instagram, YouTube, please join our crowd, right? We're really creating a collective of people that are just like, okay, right? We're activated. We're ready to change the world.
Is there like one final message you'd like to leave the audience before we close out?
Yeah, you're not sick. You're not sick. You're brilliant, right? And these out-of-body near-death experiences need to start being useful and active. I really believe that. I've got 2 books, Turn Illness into Brilliance, which, you know, explains it all in great detail. I'm quite the researcher. Chronicles of Tigla, which is the amazing experiences, the out-of-body experiences and magical experiences of a child, right?
Mhm.
And what life is like, trying to maneuver that complexity on every level, right? And turn illness into brilliance. Yeah.
Mhm.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Both of which are on Amazon. And yeah, we have a lot going on. So please search us out. Cherie Doyen, CherieDoyen, and Quantum Therapeutix with an X. We would love to talk to you. And please reach out. We want to see you activated for sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.